do we start?
Well, I don't know actually.
Yeah.
Hello, I'm Tom.
I'm Simon.
We work at the Grand Studio, which is this place in Clitheroe. Aside from anything else, aside from the technology and all that kind of stuff, one of the things that we pride ourselves on as engineers and as people is making musicians feel that they can reach their potential while they're in here.
Definitely. Yeah, that's really important.
We work hard to create a relaxed, well, not just relaxed, but a friendly environment in here. People can come in here and they can relax and they can pull their walls down and really get into the performance of what they're trying to do. And it's important for us as engineers and as producers and as people as well to recognise what it is that a musician wants to achieve, and that's obviously that's a goal that we search for. When we're working with anyone, we work with them and the knowledge that we will be able to give them what they want at the end of it, and maybe and often something that they didn't think they had in them as well, which is brilliant when
it's
that
often
happens,
the case, really.
Yeah.
We get so many bands, singers and musicians walk through the door, and straight away we want them to feel like they're comfortable and that they trust us, they trust our abilities, and they trust that they're going to get something they're really proud of, that we're really proud of at the end of the session. We've got 2 reasonable sized live rooms, one slightly bigger than the other. It's great for separating musicians and maybe bigger piece bands that are wanting to record different parts, but we've also got the stage as well. We're part of a gig venue too, so if we want a really big sound on stage, big room for drum tracking, it's ideal really to be using all 3 rooms. And we've got video link between the rooms as well, which is great for sort of communication really between musicians and setting up monitor mixes, that sort of thing.
Yeah, it's really nice, kind of unique part of what we can do with the whole live recording thing. We've got 2 ways of doing it, haven't we? We've got a digi profile upstairs, so we can take the digi links direct 48 channels straight down into our Mac down here, record straight into Pro Tools. But we've also got mic splits up there as well, so we can go the analog route if you want to patch it in, and we can still use some of our lovely outboard down here at the same time to capture stuff. So yeah, we've done quite a lot of that recently. We've done a live single for a local band from sort of Wigan area that sounded really great actually. They've done sort of live drums and that up there. Equally, we've done like bigger kind of like choir things, but then we've had touring bands in who've had their shows recorded as well, which is great. So we've done live albums for Wishbone Ash before, which was cool.
Yeah, and a live album from the Jam as well. Bruce Foxton's from the Jam. That was really good.
Because we do deal with a lot of younger bands, we deal with a lot of younger people. They aren't fully developed as musicians, and to an extent, you kind of think, are we doing them a favour by processing them to this degree, by ironing out all these kinks?
Yeah.
And they take away something that really they didn't actually play, because particularly with drummers, young drummers, who haven't got the balance right between the way that they play the kit. They're not that tight, but we use Beat Detective to tidy it up, or we go through like sample replacing. I won't sample replace, and I don't sample replace because I think as an engineer, one of my jobs is to get a great drum sound from the off, and I don't want to polish a player and make them sound like Mike Portnoy or something when they've actually come in and it's about representing a band as well. And I know that it's an industry standard to do that now, particularly in rock and metal genres, but for me, I kind of feel like bands still need to develop and they still need to learn, and they can't and they shouldn't expect to have every single thing ironed out of them when they go into a studio, because I don't think it's healthy, and I don't actually think it's very creative either. We've had situations where people have come in and it's really obvious that they're not delivering, particularly with maybe a vocalist or whatever. and we've had situations where they just can't get behind the lyrics right, and they can't feel what the lyrics are about, and that comes across, and it's and doesn't matter how much producing or engineering you do on it, you can't fix that.
No.
You know, you can't fix someone who isn't in the moment. You know, and you can do things to help them get there, but ultimately, if they're not fully 100% behind it, then it does come across, I think.
Yeah.
And I think it's, I don't know. It's an odd one because, you know, it is kind of a standard practice now to basically to iron over things to cover people up. And it's not like I'm saying everyone needs to be an absolutely incredible clinical musician, because that I don't agree with either. And I'd be a hypocrite if I said that, because I definitely aren't myself. But, you know, at the very least, you need to have absolute confidence in your execution with what you're doing. If it is 3-chord punk rock, you need to go in there and you need to feel like a punk rocker to do it right. And, you know, people forget about that sometimes. And that is the difference between a band that goes way up and a band that stays down, really.
It's about, well, a couple of things. It's telling a story and actually portraying an emotion as well, and actually making sure that singer or that band are true to the point that they're making, and the emotion that's really coming out of that genre of music. It's great to work on sessions together, because we have very different tastes in mixing and different styles of, you know, mic placement. So when we work together, we just come up with something which is great, really, isn't it? You know, and a few albums we've sort of collaborated on. We've got a sound that we both wouldn't normally get, because we've sort of joined together and joined forces, if you like. So that's been really interesting, hasn't it?
Definitely. I mean, it's something that some bands have picked up on as well, as how we actually work together as a team on collaborative mixes, because I mean, as I said, we do we approach it slightly differently. I mean, my background is also quite different to Si's. I don't really have the same formal training that Si does, so I tend to be a bit more happy-go-lucky with it, really, I guess, in a way. So I'd be like, let's sling a mic over there and see what it sounds like. And I love that, you know, and one of the joys of it really is mucking around and going, oh, well, you know, let's see what happens when we do this. And, you know, maybe it doesn't work, but maybe sometimes you find something that sounds amazing. So it's great.
It's also really good to have your musician's ear, like on quite a lot of sessions as well. So I've got, you know, as an engineer, I've got so many ideas in my head musically, and it's getting them out of my head to a musician. And Tom will just step in, and, you know, he will know the right scale, the right notes, and get out of my head to the musician exactly what I'm trying to listen for and what I want from, you know, a particular part. So it works really well.
Quite helpful, isn't it? Really.
Yeah.
I mean, that's one of my favourite bits of doing sort of studio engineering is when you actually get into the nitty gritty of putting those little parts on that really kind of lift the song and make them better. So often I'll sling a guitar on and sort of work with the guitarist, kind of putting parts together and stuff like that. So that's something that's really great.
Yeah.
I tend to like a lot of kind of big ambient sounds. That's one of my big things. So I like one of the things we like to do recently that we've been doing is, even though we've got a really nice clean live room, it's still quite lively in there, but we've also taken to putting some mics out in the corridors, because it just gets, it's a bit leery and it's a bit uncontrolled, but the mix of it underneath the drums can really bring out the whack of that snare drum, and really bring, particularly if you've got a really hard hitting drummer who really gets those microphones working, when you've got those corridor mics out there, the whole thing just goes whack, and it sounds massive. But the beauty of it is that you've actually got quite a lot of control between that ambient sound and the clean close sound, because it's out in the corridor, so it's not like you're just recording in a huge hall. You've still got the nice controlled, kind of relatively close sound, but then you can mix in that ambient sound to really give it some I don't know, some excitement, I guess.
Yeah.
That's always what I'm looking for in a drum sound is
And it also just, it kind of brings to life actually what the bands are trying to achieve. I think we were talking earlier and saying a lot of the bands, we tend to set the rhythm section up in the live room, so they're all playing together, and actually just to kind of capture that energy is really important. You know, so we've been less and less fussed about little bits of kind of spill from microphones, because it's about capturing the energy at the end of the day, not just hitting record. It's about actually, having a recording and a mix that's kind of gracious to that, and really kind of that would sort of shine through, really, that energy.
Yeah. I guess one of the things that's nice is that you kind of reach a point where you know the theory, you know the science, and you get to that threshold, and you know it, and you know enough to create a decent passable recording. But I think it's that point where you can go, nah, I don't care about that. I'm going to do something else.
Sounds great. Let's go with it,
and we'll run with it.
Yeah.
And it's knowing that you can reach that stage and go and knowingly disregard something that you kind of know is scientific, if that makes sense. But you can actually go in there and you can go, well, sod that. I'm not going to do that because I want it to sound like this. And then that's where the fun is.
Rules.
That's where the fun is. Yeah.
Yeah. Exactly.
You can tastefully break the rules to find something that really, really works. And often I think with a recording, some of my favourite recordings aren't perfect recordings in any way at all. You listen to them and you think, if I was just going to listen to them with my strictest engineer head on, I would go, oh well, that's too slammed, or there's too much resonance from that floor tom or whatever. But then that's taken all the soul out of it. And I like to listen to it, and I like to listen to an album that says something totally unique to me, and that's.
It's trying to step outside of the kind of the engineer's box sometimes, and put yourself in the kind of the listener box, and think, right, the majority of people are going to be listening to this, not analysing that particular frequency.
Exactly. Yeah.
So it's an art to do that.
Yeah, it's the difference between making a recording and making a piece of work, isn't it?
Yeah.
Yeah. You're working with someone's art at the end of the day, and I know that sounds a bit lofty, but it is true. And if you can buy into an artist's creative vision and helpfully ignore some of the theory, not all of it, obviously, but if you can reach that point where you can knowingly, buy into a vision, then that's the point when the magic happens. Really, I think when you're recording.
Yeah.
That's my view.